Me, Pops Fan Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Madness Entertainment Group presents the Madness Comic Network with original programming and additional comic-related content.
Hey, we want to shout out to our sponsors, Daytona Beach Comic Con. If you are a fan of comic books, if you're a fan of comic book conventions, and if you like meeting comic book creators and getting comics and comic-related stuff, then you need to make your plans to attend Daytona Beach Comic Con. This year's show is September 9th and 10th. Silverline will be there, so you should make your plans to be there too. We'll see you there. If you like comics and find yourself in the Orlando, Florida area, doesn't everyone come to Orlando at some point in time to see the House of Mouse? But when you're here, you need to make it a point to visit Coliseum of Comics, especially the one on East Colonial Drive. They carry Silverline comics, even a limited edition Coliseum of Comics version of our comics. So, when you go, be sure to ask for Silverline Comics and tell them we sent you. OCD stands for Orlando Collector Deviants. OCD, Steve and Trish, they're a family of geeks who promote geek things, particularly those around the Orlando, Florida area. They're big supporters of Silverline, and we think you should be supporters of theirs too. Go give them some love. If you are an independent comic book maker and you need to get your independent comics made, you need to look no further than Kablam Digital Printing. They print our books, and they do a bang-up job. They're not only trusted by Silverline, but many, many independent comic book makers. Head on over to Kablam.com and see for yourself just how easy it is to have your comic printed by them. And tell them Silverline sent you.
Hi, this is Tim TK, host of That Silverline Show on Tuesday. Join us at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Tuesday night as we discuss pop culture and the joys of making comics.
Hi, I'm Barb Kelber, co-host of Silverline's Wednesday Wham. Join us each Wednesday nights as we discuss comics, literature, movies, and anything else that may catch our attention.
I'm Roland Mann, and I host Silverline's Silver Sunday. Join me every Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern as we make mine Silverline.
Hello, Internet, and welcome to That's Silverline Show on Tuesday. I'm your host, Tim TK, and I'm joined, as always, by Jose Fuentes.
Hello, Internet.
And Cassisi Harris.
Hey, how you doing?
And tonight we're going to be talking about the evolution of conventions, how comic conventions, collectible conventions, that sort of thing has changed over the years, what it started out as and what it is today. And for us to talk about where that fits in for you, the indie creator. How do you slide into all that? We're also joined by Cassisi's cat.
Yeah, she'll make several appearances throughout.
Very good. The one of the benefits of where I changed my studio to is my cats cannot break in here, although they do often claw at the door.
Yeah.
Right.
They'll find their way in. They'll find their way in. Give them time. They'll hold it.
Yeah. Well, that won't be too bad. For a while there, I had a twin mattress set that is just set up against the back wall, which finally got moved out of the way. So no, I no longer need to worry about them toppling that over. Okay. So before we get into it, any housekeeping we have, make sure to head on over to sellingcomics.com. Click that link in the top right to buy some of our comics. You can also buy merch from us there. We have mugs, t-shirts, all that thing. So get yourself some Silverline merch. Catch up on any comics you've missed. It helps us out a lot. Personal housekeeping. Yeah, the shirts are really good. Personal housekeeping, I will be at KimuraCon in Portland this weekend. I'll be in cosplay the entire weekend, so if you're interested in saying hello, come find me running with the cosplay crew. I'll either be on Friday, I'll be Nanami. Saturday, I'll be Gojo from Jujutsu Kaisen. And then on Sunday, I'll be Denji from Chainsaw Man. So come find me and say hello. Yeah. Do you have any other housekeeping from either of you guys? Anything you need to promote?
No.
If they come up and say hello to you, can they challenge you to a duel?
Yes.
Make it happen, people. Make it happen.
Yes. Good. All right. As I said earlier tonight, we're going to be talking about the comic convention scene, what it started out as to what it is today. So I'll kind of open up the floor here first. So any conventions at all, comic, collectible, anime, what have you? What are either of your experiences with conventions?
I'm rather new to conventions, so I went to my first convention. Wow, maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago when I worked at Funko. So that was my introduction to. I was working the booth at Emerald City Comic Con. So I was like, oh, okay. You know, I up until that point thought it was unreachable. Like I didn't grow up thinking that I could go to a Comic Con, if that makes any sense. So working there, it was like, oh, okay, this is what it is. I didn't get to walk around much because I was working it at that point, but I immediately went to WonderCon after that because I was like, oh, okay, well, let me see. So went to WonderCon, and then I just started to fall in love with cons, but then COVID hit. So I went to cons after that, but it kind of wasn't the same population wise. But I've never been to like New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con, so I don't know. You know, those are like the big ones.
New York Comic Con is pandemonium. It's so crazy.
Is it?
Oh my gosh.
So I don't know what it was like before, right?
Sure.
Like, yeah, if that makes sense.
Okay. Jose, what has your experience with cons been?
So I've been going to conventions for a long time. Originally, I started off obviously going there like as a fan, right? Most people want to go there. Like, oh, I'm going to check it out. And my first convention was Wizard World Chicago.
Okay.
Then I found out that if you can prove that you're a creator, you don't have to get a table there, but if you can prove you're a creator, that they'll give you a pass to get in for like the weekend and whatnot, right? So I started doing that, and like so, I think 5-6 years of going there. I think I tabled once, but it Wizard World Chicago. But I walked around there and I showed people my art and stuff like that. I don't want to say I was nowhere near as good as I am now because I don't think I'm that good anyway. I definitely had some garbage stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, like so I think I'm 40 something years old now. I think I was 22, I think, when I started going. And I've been to, you know, like several. I've been to New York Comic Con twice, or sorry, 3 times. Tabled once, but only because I went to art school at the Hubert School, and that was one of our field trips was to go. For the first 2 years, it was our school field trip to go to New York Comic Con, like to get in, and then the third year we were able to schedule time to table there.
Wow.
Which there's a particular artist that I hold a grudge against because his people wrapped around his table all the way to the end and wrapped in front of us. I wanted to throw pencils at people to get them out of the way, but I was told that we frowned upon that. So
yeah, Yeah, that was. I've had some more experiences. I haven't got I'm intermittent with conventions. I've gone and took years off, and I've gone again and took years off. But I've gone to both margin conventions as well as some of the smaller, more independent ones.
Mhm.
And 1 year I was doing Rose City Comic Con, and the table next to us had Booth Babes in full cosplay. So of course the line ended up wrapping around us, and that was great.
Mhm.
But yeah. So yeah, Rose City is probably one of the largest I've been to. But also I've done, attended very small, like independent ones where it's essentially just like the one room at a hotel or
Oh, yeah.
wherever.
I've done those.
Yeah, where but those have also been pretty interesting. I think we'll get into it, but that's almost more of like a view into the past of what comic conventions originally were.
Those hallway conventions.
Yeah, hallway conventions. So we'll kind of get into it, I guess. But now when people think of comic conventions, they probably think of these large, unattainable beasts, things like San Diego, New York, even now Rose City. Emerald City's getting big as well. That's been growing pretty steadily, I feel like. But conventions, much like comics themselves, weren't really as propped up as they are now. You didn't have the MCU and the DCU and all that driving the popularity of superheroes. Back in the good old days, pretty much you just had those single hotel room conventions where they just find whatever hotel room and let them use their lobby, or find a hallway at the nearest community center that would be open to them.
Yep.
Yeah. And at the point, you didn't really have a whole lot of, unless you lived in New York or LA, you didn't really have a whole lot of big names there. It's just whoever was locally involved with either creating or collecting. And then if there was an admission ticket, which wasn't always the case, it was a place for collectors to stock up on their collections as opposed to trying previews of upcoming projects, or trying to meet and greet with all of your favorite artists. It was primarily just a collector's thing, I feel like, but also much more community-driven collector's event. So, obviously, you haven't been to one of those, but imagine it sounds much different than from when we started it.
No, but I've been to, I guess
it's kind of like a swap meet.
Conventions now are very interesting because you can go to a Comic Con, right? But then you can go to like a fan expo, and so being a novice, right? I didn't really know the difference, or if there was even a difference, and still maybe I can't tell you the difference. But if I go to a fan expo, those feel very small by comparison to a Comic Con convention or comic convention, and so I think those are almost, the more I go to, maybe it's just the ones that I'm choosing. They feel like they're getting back to just
the grassroots feel of it.
Yeah. And you're not really there to see a person or I guess the Comic Cons I go to, there are big names there, and people are kind of waiting for autographs or taking pictures, and so you can see lines that are doing that, and not at like booths where comics are sold, or even
Well, I gave a free comic to Pauly Shore at Rose City.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
it's just weird. Like if I go to a fan expo, I feel like I'm there for the artist and the comic books, and there's not like a pop culture as much draw, even though it's a fan expo. I guess I don't know.
Yeah,
that's interesting because I have a different feel for fan expo. Because every time I've been to one, it's been like a lot of I guess not maybe just a few actors and whatnot, but a ton of voice actors and a ton of anime stuff.
There
Like that,
there are voice actors in anime. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
there's a lot of them. And so to me, being that takes away from like the comic book artists that are there. I know that there are several conventions, at least some locally for me, that are like kind of trying to go back to like
Hmm.
not so much the grassroots, but like the roots of comic book conventions. They're like, oh, comic book specific conventions. And even then, they're getting it a little goofy because they're like, oh, we have voice actors. I'm like, but you said comic book specific.
Yes.
Like if you're gonna say comic book specific, be comic book specific. But
I wonder if there's a fear though. I mean, you know, because there's this big crossover in the movies and the MCU is out there, and even though I'm not a
I think that
there's
comics has existed in a place where it's always been in this cross pollination of things. Like different medias have always like referenced comics or comics have referenced them. Like we talked
sure,
about this in a previous episode that we'll probably have to redo at some point with the Crossroads comics, but can mention how like for like if you're a nerd in the 90s, your big three: professional wrestling, comics, hip hop.
yeah.
And they all touched each other. They're all referencing each other all the time.
I mean, literally, there was a character in wrestling who was a comic book character.
Yeah.
Hurricane. He was a superhero.
Hmm. And then coming out of that, you ended up birthing like Adam Warrock, MF Doom,
Yep.
the RZA, also a huge comic fan.
But do you
Oh man,
do you think there's a
RZA.
like, you know, I'd be interested to see how just a comic book, like a true comic book convention would
Yeah.
do, because it's almost, would you draw a crowd? I mean, maybe it's not about drawing a crowd, but drawing the right crowd, but
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. It'd be interesting because I definitely think that I think the problem now is just even for like a store, like the cost of keeping the lights on over like a weekend.
Yeah,
So you get to the point where like if you're doing a special event, I feel like you do need to try and like shotgun as many people through the door as you can. And so even if you are doing like a throwback style convention, like I've been to one of those where it was set up inside of a comic store. Essentially, they had their own local convention. They still had like a professional wrestler set up there just because it's like, yeah, this guy wrestled in the '80s, signing autographs.
yep.
Yeah, that's actually how I met Off of the Wild Samoan, who, if you don't know, is I believe he's Dwayne the Rock Johnson's uncle.
Oh wow.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I think maybe if things hadn't the cost of service and operating hadn't inflated to the point, I think it would be much more like attainable to do a comics only
Yeah.
convention. But I think now at this point, you need to try and like hit a cross genre of groups. And I think that also does, if you're keeping it narrowed down, I think that also does benefit indie creators, or someone might go there to meet a professional wrestler that they've been following, or like some local like musician or rapper who they know and is playing at that convention. You're still getting someone in the door who's then walking
Hmm.
the rows, and there's a chance that if you have a really good cover, you're going to draw their attention and
Right.
hopefully pull someone you wouldn't normally pull. So it's
Well,
actually
I mean, as a promoter, you don't want to really miss out on any opportunities either. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because in the end, like you make your money as a promoter by, and correct me if I'm wrong, people, are Silverline people fans, like, the Confather and whatnot. But you kind of make that money from people that buy cables and stuff like that, right? So,
Hmm.
you don't want to miss opportunity of having like that fan base not show up because they didn't have people of their particular genre, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. From what I understand, most cons now make all their money from, they don't really make it from selling tickets. Like the tickets just cover the cost of operating. They make their money from selling tables, which then kind
Yeah,
of sucks for the creators because then it becomes increasingly hard for us to even break even at a convention.
that is very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. The
Didn't I hear they were breaking up like and maybe we were gonna talk about this, and I'm sorry.
no, no,
Yeah. But didn't I hear they were getting back to like, individual entities are now gonna have their own cons, so it's gonna kind of break up the Comic Con kind of
right.
circuit.
So, so I still think the Comic Con organization is still doing their big four: San Diego, New York, Rose City, and Emerald.
Mm,
But those are now being sponsored by local entities if they're willing to take them over. Like Rose City is now presented by Dark Horse because they're just over in Bend. But I think as I think some of it has to do with super fatigue. Some of it has to do with comic creators wanting to find alternate avenues. That more so has driven some business to independent entities, like the Salem, the part of Oregon that I actually live in, about an hour south of Portland, has now got its own convention going because there actually are a few comic creators who live in Salem but don't necessarily want to make the drive out to Portland or feel like Portland is their only convention, and the other ones are the nearest ones have also then been San Diego and Seattle, which are too out of the way. So having another one that's local would allow creators in Oregon to be able to do Portland and Salem, and then if Bend ends up restarting their convention, then another one in Bend. But a lot of creators bustle up in Bend because if they work at Dark Horse, will come over to Salem because it's a little closer than Portland.
I'm actually
had,
excited. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm saying we had not my local shop, but like one close by. They started putting on their own convention like 2-3 years ago, I think, and it got pretty like it's gotten pretty big. They reformatted some of the stuff they did, so they didn't have one this year, but they've already announced that they're having one in next year in March.
Nice.
I'm really excited to see where that goes because I would like to go to a lot of little. I actually would like to go to little ones just to, you don't feel as much pressure.
There's much pressure, and if you're tabling there, it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Usually it's a lot cheaper. There are some that like are one day and like the guy wants to charge like 150 a table, which to me is a lot for a 1 day convention personally.
Yeah.
But I've done like was it the school basement or the church basement conventions. I've done a couple of those, and those were interesting. People like to come up and talk a lot.
Mm.
Check something.
But and then I've done, like I said, I've done Chicago and what's called Three Rivers now, but it used to be called PitCon. Did that. That was fun. Um, and then in Chicago, we actually passed out donuts
Nice.
when we had our own table. That's how we got people attracted to our table. But I like as a whole, the smaller ones are actually kind of fun because yeah, like you said, the tables tend to be cheaper, and so like it's not a big stress to like, oh, I have to push everything out to cover that table cost, right?
Yeah.
For me, if you make a couple sales, it's already covered,
Mm-hmm.
But then you get to like actually like talk to people, like instead of just trying to peddle your wares to them, you're talking it like because I like to actually talk about, and I didn't think I would, but I actually like talking about my process. So like when I take stuff to conventions, I'll take the pencils and then I'll take my inks, and if I have colors, I'll take those. But I'll take them so I can show like this is the process of what I did. This is how I got to where and to finish my aspect of this particular comic book page, and just I don't know, just talking about what I do, like my thought process when I work and whatnot. Like that seems to be what people like kind of walk up and are interested in talking about because then they start talking about the stuff like because a lot of what I get is like, oh yeah, I used to draw, and I was like, okay, well why don't you? Why don't you still? Like what happened? You know what I mean? Like oh well, I'm just a lot of it. Then get back on. I have a local comic shop that we go draw. It used to be every Saturday. It's going to be starting doing every Friday now. Like come out and draw with me. Like, oh, I'm not a comic book artist. Neither are a couple of people that came with us, but they still come and draw and just have fun. Like the point is, we're building our community by like like talking about comics and drawing. And if someone is like stumbling with something, like there's been plenty of times where like they've asked me or my friend Josh, and like, hey, like I'm having trouble with this. Like, can you help me out with like this? Yeah, no problem. Here, let's work it out. You know what I mean? I personally think that builds a better community, and like not just for friends and whatnot, but like for people who aren't artists but want to like dabble more. And we've had people like come in and then leave, and even while they were gone, they'd message our group like, "Hey, what's the drawing theme for this weekend?" And like they'll be drawing while they're states away. It's just it. I don't know. Or when when you have a smaller convention, you can talk to more people. I guess is what I
Yeah.
say.
Even then, it's not even just people walking through the door, but also other people tabling as well in a convention like that, because of there's less noise happening, so it's a lot easier to make friends with the creator across the road from you, or
Yeah.
especially if you have a table partner. Which, if you're a writer, I recommend, if your artist lives locally to you, bringing them with you, because one, they can sell art and that brings people to your table. Because as a writer, it's hard to pull people to your table. But even say like, if like at Rosated River, CC and I decide to split a table and we each sell our own books there. One of us can then watch the table, the other one can then bring whatever we want to go find other creators and pass out to other people and be like,
Right.
hey, you want to exchange books or whatever, which is what you're going to want to do as a creator, try and market yourself to other people in the industry and try to get in touch with other editors or publishers or people like that.
Yeah, I find it's crazy. And you know what? The last few conventions I went to, I couldn't stop and talk to anybody. I don't, especially in the artist alley portion of it.
Yeah.
It was almost like you were on like this. You might as well have been on an escalator or
Oh yeah.
and you just could not stop. There were so many people. If you did
Bumper
not
to
know
bumper
what you
traffic.
wanted, yeah, if you didn't know what you wanted, if you didn't, if you weren't very familiar with the artist alley layout, even you were just in that line and you could not stop, right? Unless it was just very interesting. So I didn't see anybody really talking to anyone other than the people that were the group that they were walking with. I didn't see very many people actually engaging artists, but that could have been the time of day I went to, but over the course of multiple days, it's only the last day when, most, not most, some of the booths are even empty. So some of the artists that you might have wanted to talk to are all sold out and not even there anymore.
Yeah.
So a smaller convention, I really want to go to those just to see how it feels to see the community be a community, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Listen, I will tell you, when I table at a convention, I am there to work, right? So I'll bring stuff to work on, and stuff that if I decide to take, like if I usually do take commissions, but um stuff that my tools that I need for commissions, right? But I rarely ever get up, and when I do, it's like, oh, I forgot to go check to see if they had this here. You know what I mean? And if I take somebody, like if I take my daughter with me, because she tends to table with me a lot, um, that that gives me the opportunity to get up, right? That gives me the opportunity to walk around and like talk to people. But most of the time it's before the show. Like if you go there and you table, you tend to get there early because you want to set up, and then you're as long as you get all your stuff set up, you can have a few minutes to go walk around, look around.
Mm,
But
okay.
yeah, I'm not good about getting up and leaving.
Definitely. So kind of taking a step back here, how do we think that we ended up injecting sort of the mass appeal into conventions that led to the rise of the like brand name Comic-Con circuit, as well as some of the other ones in the space, like Anime Expo and South by Southwest, all that kind of thing. Yeah, obviously, like big things that come to mind are things like the MCU, the DC movie universe, as well as just kind of the slow trickle of growth in the big two that happened after they both did the reboots in about 2002, 2003. But also another thing that I think that gets looked over is the cross-pollination with the gaming space. Not just talking about video games, but also the inclusion of board games and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, D&D popped off thanks to Critical Role, but even before then, like as more tabletop RPGs ended up growing and getting thrown into things like that, they got more board games. Warhammer exploded into popularity in 2005, and them also having booths and collaborations with comics all the way back then. I think, and then things like science fiction, fantasy movies have also been involved in conventions where you'd get previews for The Lord of the Rings, stuff like that. So not necessarily comic branded movies, but then just in general science fiction, fantasy nerd movies also get included in that.
Well, in 80s and 90s nostalgia, the biggest, I mean, I guess when I go to conventions, you see a whole bunch of 80s, 90s things like Back to the Future, like any 80s or 90s horror film, like all that is like played up. You'll have whole booths that are dedicated to selling that type of movie. Sometimes they cross the movie posters or whatever, but just whole 80s and 90s movie posters or something like that, which is, I guess it makes sense. If you even think of the comics that are big, I guess the 90s era, anything around that kind of a era is going to appeal to that audience because they're that age that would really appreciate those things. I guess. I don't know.
Well, even then, like I feel like younger generations now also appreciate these thanks to things like Stranger Things, but also just with how influential the 80s was on American media in general. I think it's really like even like before like resurgence of 80s nostalgia, like as a kid growing up, I knew what RoboCop was, despite it coming out years before I was born.
Did you really?
Yeah.
I grew up with that, so I would, I know why I would know RoboCop.
Yeah.
But I don't know why anybody younger than me would know it, even with the remake. Even with the remake, I don't know why they would know RoboCop.
Well, it's just like it seems that like it just gets stuck in like the collective zeitgeist and this like holds on forever. It's like Mortal Kombat was like that. RoboCop, Terminator, and
the OG legit action movies and whatnot.
Yeah, freaking Demo Man.
See, I don't know why anyone would know that beyond people who grew up with that.
Because they have good parents, Cassisi. That's why kids nowadays would know that, because they have good parents.
That's true. I mean, I get Terminator. Terminator has existed beyond the era that it came out. Even Aliens, right? That existed beyond that. But RoboCop didn't, right?
Like RoboCop had died, but it died and got brought back, like RoboCop.
RoboCop had Red Foreman in it, dude. What's not to love?
But I think
I love it.
But I think it's one of the things where like its impact at the moment was like it became a meme before memes, where like it just were kind of like where comics would then get referenced in hip hop, where you'd end up getting like what's his name? I lost it. Anyway,
DJ?
No, there was a.
Don't hurt yourself, Tim.
I'm dying. There you go. You end up getting Sir Mix-a-Lot making a reference to Iron Man. If you watch the music video, it's very clearly Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. But RoboCop was kind of, I think, that same trick where it ends up being featured and everything else, where I feel like there's some moments in pop culture where like it just ends up getting referenced eternally by other things that it's impossible to escape it. Like, I feel like the reason why 80s horror, especially like all those monsters and stuff, have lived on for so long is because, it's impossible to escape the references to them. And that makes them important to pop culture, so then being featured in conventions a lot.
Yeah. I think it's weird. I think those may carry the conventions for a long time because, the MCU may kind of wane now, depending on how they perform in these next few years, right? But Freddy Krueger is going to last forever. And if you can find a new way to...
In your nightmares.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? If you can find a new way to even if they never made another Freddy Krueger movie, right?
Right.
Another Nightmare on Elm Street. If you can find a new way to draw Freddy Krueger on a print, people will probably buy it. Like I don't know. It's just something about.
Speaking of MCU, I don't know if anyone's caught up on Loki, but how dare they? Of all the shows to make me cry at the end.
Oh,
I heard that. I've not seen it, but I've heard that.
Yeah.
Put Tim in his fields and whatnot.
you
No,
can't do no spoilers. You can't.
no
Don't. No.
spoilers, but no, yeah. Of all the shows to like hit you with a gut punch at the end, it's a good gut punch, but it's still like, man, all right.
Right?
Um, Another thing also that of growth and also some change to scene is the kind of kids grew up dressing up as Spider-Man and Captain America for Halloween, and then realized I can just kind of do this whenever I want to, and I have money now as an adult, so I can make it a better costume.
A lot better with 3D printing and everything. You can make it a lot better costume.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
3D printing. I mean, even if you're just like take time to learn like foam crafting or cardboard crafting, yeah.
Yep.
Hey, still give it up to the OG people who pieced together their cosplay from Goodwill. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
That's mad respect.
Absolutely.
Those are people that in high school and college. They love theater.
Love theater, and they love the media that they're referencing.
Yeah.
And so you have people showing up conventions in cosplay, essentially just wanting to hang out and feel cool. And then this keeps on growing and growing because more people realize like, oh, this is something I can also do, and I like the way that this looks. Or you end up getting people like Adam Savage, who is cheating because he's been in Lights and Magic film work since the 80s. He's like, I'm just going to make my own costume. Like, you're just making a film grade prop.
Hey, that's not cheating. That is using your
learned skill. Yeah,
It's skill, but it's like when you show up, like I can't imagine being the guy who showed up in the Walmart Iron Man at the same con that Adam Savage showed up in his Iron Man.
There's levels to it.
Behind that helmet, he's doing this.
Look, there's levels to it. There's levels to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, then ended up being some people who ended up being, a little bit creepy with cosplayers. So you had to get the whole now I have to almost regulate the things no, don't touch the people in the costumes. But
that dude in every convention that did the full pyramid head.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Especially when they're ripped enough to pull that off. Good gravy.
And one of my life goals is at some point to get so jacked. My steroid use that year is going to be off the charts. But I'd be a film accurate Broly from
wow. Okay.
He knows.
Gosh, okay. That's enough. I don't know. I mean,
do it.
My genetics are not there. It's going to be all artificial.
Do it. Go big. Wow. There's going to be a lot of steroids, though.
There's going to be a lot of steroids.
You can only stay there for about 5 minutes because you'll get pissed off and try and kill somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so funny.
My cycle's gonna be every 10 minutes. I need to read my cycle. Otherwise,
right? Good gravy.
Oh God.
Maybe not go that intense, but I if I were ever to be at the point where I could be that jacked and just be a full Broly, that would be peak confidence builder.
Yeah, exactly. Take a lot of pictures. Take a lot of pictures because maintaining that is gonna suck.
You're going to have to treat that convention like a bodybuilding show where you just do the water weight cut the day before. Don't eat anything, drink anything the entire time.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But I mean, obviously, I have my own experience with cosplay. I'm going to be cosplaying this weekend. But do you guys have any experience with cosplay? I don't know if you've done any, but interacting with it on social medias, or have actually gone to a cosplay.
Never cosplay, right? The closest was when I was a kid, dressing up for Halloween, and then one time my wife got me and her and the kids to all dressed up as characters from Alice in Wonderland on a Disney cruise. That is about that is
Okay,
about the closest I've ever come to like
That's
cosplay.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
nice.
I
And
want
I
to.
complained about it the whole time until pictures. Then I was like,
Have you felt any wants to attend like a cosplay competition at a convention, Jose?
I have like as a contestant,
Or as a spectator?
I have as a spectator. But only because my daughter, when she does conventions with me, she always cosplays, right?
Oh,
Okay.
And it's really funny, and I say this in the nicest and most loving way, but my wife does not like cosplayers.
Okay.
I believe I've explained this to you before, Tim.
Yes.
So we were at a convention, waiting in line. One of the first times I ever waited in line to walk through the door, and she was with me. And as I'm sitting there waiting in line, just waiting patiently, she starts grabbing my arm, and then grabbing my arm, and then grabbing my arm. Like, what are you doing? She's like, "What's wrong with these people?" And I had to like look, like kind of like look up because I was like zoning out. I had to look up to see what was going on, and it was a bunch of cosplayers walking to the contest, right?
Right.
And I explained that to her. I was like, she's like, "Yeah, I don't like them at all." And the irony is that my daughter loves to cosplay now. Every time we go to a show, she will cosplay, and it works for her because she gets a ton of people to her table. Like she's literally outsold me at every convention. Like I'm
wow.
supposed to be a professional comic book artist, and she's still that's so dope, dude.
Showing off the Gojo that's gonna be this weekend, piece by piece.
But yeah,
Nice.
so like I've been there to like to watch as a spectator to watch my daughter and some of the people go up there for some of the smaller shows, and I think I want to say I watched one at when I was in Chicago, but it might not have been Chicago. It might have been somewhere else. Where like
Okay.
it was big. Like people were like very elaborate poses with lights and all kinds of like weird. Like I have no clue who these people. I have to ask my some of my other friends that like are into anime and stuff. I'm like, who's that?
Yeah, yeah, I've had to do that too
Yeah,
for
yeah.
people. Like,
I mean,
who
I
is
get it. Everyone's like Captain America, Wonder Woman, little kid. There was a little kid at Pikeville dressed up as Ghost Rider. I'm not even lying. That brother had
Nice.
hair all up and whatnot, like flames. Oh, this is dope.
I saw the Thundercats at WonderCon, and I mean, they did it
That's
well.
cool.
It was, oh my gosh, it was one of the coolest ones I'd ever seen. Like, it was pretty good. Yeah,
Dang.
yeah,
Oh,
But yeah, so like some cosplayers, like their stuff is pretty elaborate and pretty awesome. And it's been, I feel, a huge draw for like conventions
yeah.
hmm
because now you're not just getting like, nerdy comic book people, you know what I mean? And you're not just getting people that, oh, I want to go get this famous person's autograph, you know what I mean? And for me, it was getting Michael Turner's autograph or getting a sketch from Todd Knox, you know what I mean? For me, those are my superstars. It was like these are people that I hold in high esteem and you know what I mean, want to learn anything I can from them, and most of them were really cool about it. But there's so many people that like want to go there for all the celebrity people, and I feel like a nice like bridge between the two is the cosplaying contest. You know what I mean? You
Yep.
get anime people there. I think that's what drew voice actors and whatnot to the shows and stuff, and because anime people are dressed in their character. Like I said, my daughter dresses up in cosplay, and she had a ton of other people that were walking around. You know what I mean? People that came in, paid their admission to come in. There was like a flock of them that came and talked to her. That were all dressed in the same,
Hmm.
not the same anime character, but within that same genre, right?
Right.
And so like that's a huge draw. And so if you get that just for like the little stuff that she does, I mean, think about it, a bigger show, you're gonna get like tons of people that come in, and that's you know what I mean. That just opens up like the floor for so many more um like interests and like I said genres into a convention. That's I feel that that's why like New York City is like blown like super huge because not just because of that, but like the accessibility of that, like of people to dress up like that and meet the people that they're dressing up like, right? The people who voice the characters, they dress up
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, and also another draw comes from like for the like drawing the cosplayers themselves. We end up getting people who were theater kids or like arts kids or like crafts kids who do like nerdy stuff, but you the type. Like even for a convention, they're not leaving their house because they're spending their time painting stuff or painting models or sewing. But now this gives them a reason to get out and actually like, show that off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, kind of the same thing where like why like a miniature painting is blowing up over the last couple of years on the internet and social media. It's you're giving creative people a avenue to express it that isn't really being gatekept. And is entirely focused on nerdy fashion stuff as opposed to like having to have some sort of mainstream appeal.
Do so, right? And to safely do so, like amongst peers, amongst people with the same interest. So you know, there's not going to be like like shade. Like I got a lot of shade in high school for being a comic book guy. You know what I mean? For being into comics, like you know, nerd and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Like I appreciate that thing. But yeah, like and like I said, as an artist, that hindered me like through junior high and whatnot. Yeah, I would doodle my own crap, but like I was told my artwork sucked and I should never pick up a pencil again. And for the most part, I stopped because of that. Like that's like hate that people should never have to listen to and whatnot. And when you know, even at the onset of like old you know, conventions and whatnot, people you were amongst your kind. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you felt happier. You felt like it was so much more like I could be whoever I want. I didn't have to dress up like anybody, but I knew that if I was going to start talking about like Nightcrawler from X-Men or Colossus or whatever, the person right next to me is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. So like then all of a sudden conversation starts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you feel more comfortable. You feel happier because of like the addition of you know comics in like the media where it makes it now everyone can feel that good about the stuff that they're doing. You know what I mean? But it wasn't like that before, unless you were at a convention.
Absolutely. Another thing I want to hit on is the rise and like impact from like technology and social media. Cassisi, you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. Is like growing up, for anyone born before the year 2005, pretty much like your exposure to Comic Cons was maybe watching like Tech TV or G4 do their Comic Con like floor coverage.
Yep.
Yeah. Whereas like now you on your Instagram you can get an ad for a local mom and pop convention down the road, which will hopefully draw growth to that. But then also now you have things like Wizard of the Coast now doing also like the stream of many eyes where they'll do they'll to promote upcoming books, they'll do a live stream from a convention. Like, all right, we're going to have some celebrities play, and it's going to be live streaming. If you're at San Diego Comic Con, you can grab tickets and watch there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch that when they introduced the Descent of Avernus?
Oh, and they had Jox Machina.
Dude,
yeah.
That's so okay. They took this wherever I don't even know where they were, but they took this whole joint and turned it into like a fantasy role playing marketplace, right?
Yeah.
Where people were like peddling wares and whatnot, and then there were individual rooms off somewhere else where you could see this group of people were playing in Descent to Avernus, and this group on another table in another whole different room were playing the same game. And oh my gosh, I'd never seen that before. So I watched that longer than I probably should have.
Right. But we have that thing's drawing like online engagement there, and like end up getting people like Jose, who you probably should be watching his kids at that moment, but is now instead they digitally engaged with the convention, and also now in Cassisi's and mine space, Final Fantasy 14 Fan Fest.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a digital ticket at the convention from your computer.
Yep.
Right.
I am so pissed that I couldn't get like the jerseys, the baseball jerseys this year sold out so quick.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. And I will give it to there are some, not necessarily like the big conventions like Reed Pop and them, not nothing on them, right? But there were so many like smaller conventions that really like worked hard during COVID to like make those
Yeah.
shows to
Yes.
make them accessible over
Yep.
the internet, over your
Even
computer. You know what I mean?
yeah, even Tampa Bay CollectorCon, one that we presented at together, their panel room was broadcast live the entire time. So like
Cool.
it's like the panel that I was
Great.
on, we we're talking about breaking into comics, like that was being live cast.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
the
is very cool.
Transformers one I went to had a panel that was like that. But that's
So
such a good thing. Like I'm so glad that not that I'm glad about COVID, but I'm glad that like people came up with that idea to do that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah, we can't go to a convention, but to let me bring it to your computer so you can still see all these books that are being premiered. You know what I
yeah,
mean? These clips for this upcoming movie or whatever. They still made it accessible for people to be able to like still
let's
be a part of that even when they couldn't leave the house.
yeah. Let's like I've had this conversation like talking about like how physical fitness works, but I think it also works for just like general problem solving. But human beings are evolution machines. Like when you introduce stress, the body mind adapt and rebuild, and then deploys a solution. That's how muscle growth works. But also like when you introduce stress, like things like that, the mind then does the same thing where it's going to create solutions. So and that can be positive stressors too, like technology disrupting the workplace or negative stressors like pandemic. Then we're going to end up finding ways to use whatever we can to evolve around that problem to adapt to it.
Right.
Yeah. So you kind of already talking about what are you guys experience using technology and conventions like? Obviously, you use some of it to promote when Silverline's at Tampa Bay CollectorCon. You have to use your Instagram, whatever, to promote yourself in there. But I already mentioned it, like BlizzCon when I was a heathen playing WoW, but now like obviously 14 FedFest. Like I don't know if I'll ever physically attend a FanFest. I might, but digitally I'm going to attend it whenever I get a chance. But
Right.
what have been your experiences with that intersection?
Other than, I mean, I've never really attended like a convention digitally. A lot of it for me during COVID was because it got like I was still going through school. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So there wasn't a whole heap of like, oh, I can watch this. I was like, I have to watch something I can't pay attention to, right? But definitely like paying attention to that D&D con that I watched, right?
Yeah.
And like that was new for me to like be able to sit there and watch that because man, I just that I was able to just put up on my second monitor and it worked, right?
Yeah.
But because most of that was listening to them role play, and like to me that's just fascinating, like hearing the way other people play particular character types and whatnot. But um, I totally would do a digital convention if that's
Yeah.
something that was able to work in and whatnot. So like any kind of panels and stuff like that, I would do a digital convention.
I think I would do a digital convention like FanFest, right? Like for Final Fantasy, only because it's so big. And I'm an introvert, so I think I would be kind of overwhelmed in a place like that. But for the most part, I kind of want to experience it locally. But one thing that I was fascinated by when I did first start attending Comic Cons is for cosplayers. A lot of it just boggled my mind because I wasn't a social media guy. So when I would take pictures, when I found some fascinating, like people dressed up in the old V costumes or something like that,
Yeah.
they would immediately say, "Can you tag me?" And so I was like, "Oh
Yes.
man." I didn't really think about that, but how much free publicity are you
Oh,
getting
absolutely.
because
Oh, yeah.
people are taking pictures of you and tagging you, and gosh dang it, that's so smart.
That's another thing. That's like if you're an artist working a booth and you see group cosplays walk by, always offer them to like take a photo and be like, "Hey guys, like I'll take a photo of you guys," and then like if you want to like stand in front of my booth or whatever.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it was just impressive. Like, your brain finds new ways to use. I mean, I guess to some people that was
Not
intuitive.
brain.
To some people that's intuitive, but for me it wasn't. I kind of learned like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, wow, that's how you're doing it. And the other thing is they usually all have, at least the ones I've attended, all have their own apps. So
Mhm.
they kind of make, they don't make you, but it's like heavily incentivized for you to download the app to know
Yeah.
where the panels are so they kind of make me engage with their own form of social media, right? In a way.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just find it interesting.
Don't give in to their Gestapo tactics, Kasisi. You tell them you want
I know,
you want a paper menu.
they ain't got. I mean, they can't get nothing from me. It's not like they're gonna, get any
All right.
secrets or anything. So.
Good question though, Kasisi. If FanFest does ever roll through Portland or Seattle, will you group cosplay with me?
Oh, I would. I would try. I want to do cosplay. I'm telling you, I'm going
Yes.
to. It's a big thing though. I don't know very many characters I could be, right? That I feel like I could,
That's
pull off,
kind of,
right, without
Sure.
bending it in some way.
that's kind of the joy.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, kind of the joy of those is finding ways to make it your own. Like,
Yeah.
you don't like you can buy like 100% accurate costumes, but almost kind of the fun of it is like finding something like tweak a little bit, like like if you're doing something like a Grahatia or something like that.
Right. Well, I thought about actually dressing up as my character, right?
Okay.
If I could get the Inferno jacket, if I could get certain elements, right? Like, and literally dress up as my character because I made it kind of look like me. So I'm like,
Sure.
okay. Maybe I could do that, and I don't care if people recognize me. I could like
Yeah.
literally go on the companion app and feel like,
Yeah.
that's
I feel but I feel like it's what Yoshi P, because Yoshi P every year enters the costume contest and dresses what his current player character looks like.
Yeah. But I mean, when
when you're Yoshi P,
right,
Yeah.
right. I mean, gosh, but no, I do want to do. Man, I've thought about doing several cosplay kind of things. But
I'm hearing a yes, Tim. Hey,
Okay.
I would, I would.
Yeah, hell yeah.
cosplay. Yes.
I'd find a way. Yeah.
Let's do it. Perfect. Next, if it ever rolls through, I'll be sure to hit you up.
Just so you know, now you're locked in.
Hey, I'm gonna do it. Like I'm gonna probably do it before that. I just need to find the right character. I was thinking Green Lantern, but I don't know. I'm gonna find the right character. So
Oh yeah.
figure it out.
Ooh. Green Light would be good.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Yeah. Also very, very dramatic.
Yeah. I'd like to do Ghost Rider though, but we'll see. I'll figure that out.
Do I need to get you in touch with that little kid from Pikeville? I'm telling you, my brother's hair frames are freaking awesome.
If you can find a good, the mask is the most important thing though. If I could find a good way to pull that off, that's pretty cool. That would be the thing.
Dude, there are people. I know this dude. His name is Chris. We call him Chris Nerdy because his Instagram thing is Make It Nerdy. And shout out to Make It Nerdy for the record. Now you owe me $5, brother. But he does a lot of like 3D printing and whatnot. He 3D printed like he did a Gundam suit.
Nice.
Right? Yeah, it looks freaking awesome. But like he's done like different helmets and stuff like that, like Red Hood and like all kinds of stuff, right? Find a good 3D printer, man. Like just 3D print your everything.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking about
3D printing or like foam crafting also. Just
I think that takes some. Not that it takes effort. It does take effort, but that takes some like skill and forethought.
Yeah.
Foam crafting, right? You have to like. It's like who was it? Michelangelo said that what did he say? It was like I didn't chisel a man. I chiseled the man free of the marble. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So like you have to really like look at it like that, and I don't have the brain hamster to look at things like that.
It's intense.
I can't see them in reverse. To me, that's in reverse. You know what I mean? You see a big block of foam, like all of a sudden someone seems like freaking Volcanicus' sword with like the fins on it and stuff like that. I'm like, I would never see that. I would have to cut everything off and then re-add everything back on.
Yeah, some people are really good. Gosh,
right?
Good. Yeah.
Absolutely. Kind of jump back on topic, but I'm talking about visual conventions. this, I mean, we kind of mentioned FanFest and like other like big things. Not too long ago, I attended a digital convention that was it was pretty much industry focused. I think it was Geek Forge. So it was like a smaller publisher, but they put together I think called like a writers festival type thing, and they got a bunch of people who worked with Tor and Orbit Books as well as like Dark Horse Image Comics to get on a set of panels. So the entire weekend you had this digital convention that was panel after panel, and you just logged on to one
cool.
entire through, going over different aspects of writing or in either traditional publishing like novel form or comic books, and that was the entire weekend. And the format lent itself to being actually like a really cool environment. And the entire time you also had a live chat going on, so you could talk with other members of the community and tag each other and joke and back and forth and stuff, and then they'd open up the questions at some point throughout. But yeah, I think it is like as smaller conventions continue to pop off, I think we are going to see more digital conventions kind of like that.
I hope so.
I would attend that. I would attend a smaller digital convention. I didn't think about it in that way. I would attend something like that. Yeah. Definitely.
I think also
it'd be a new take for it, for me anyway. Just because I have to sit here, but I think if it came down to like I said, doing panels and stuff like that, as long as like the communication was steady and there wasn't like too much delay for stuff, I think it'd be pretty cool.
I mean, can't think about like even filming this podcast like weekly, like essentially like that would be we just do one of these. Like if we were not just attending, but if we were like featured on a panel there, essentially it'd be like recording a podcast like this. Only then there would be direct links to our bookstores or to or whatever. So
you would have to put the Pete banner behind you.
Oh yeah, I still have it. But yeah, it would be. I think also for creators, like you wouldn't necessarily have like the benefit of being in someone's face the entire weekend, but then also you don't have the stress of having to sit there and be in someone's face the entire weekend. You do your thing, and then more or less let the infrastructure built around you do the selling. So you kind of have to hope that they've built good sales infrastructure. But if they did, then that could be.
I think the only major struggle for me would be that I have my 87 kids, and I know that they would be like, "Boop, Dad, what are you doing?"
But that would be good though. That kind of endears you to your audience.
Yes, I'm sure it would be like Homer Simpson. I love you.
Yeah, well, the one that I attended had Christopher Polini and Brandon Sanderson. If I remember correctly, I think it was Brandon Sanderson who had their kid pop in.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, and this is why I do our stream at night. So that there is sleep.
Those have been all of my notes and thoughts. So I'll open the floor again. I heard it. After everything, what are the thoughts for you guys on how conventions have changed, how they're growing, where they're growing to, and where you see the benefits for small creators to fit into all that?
I think. Go ahead, Kathy.
I was gonna say, again, I don't have the benefit of knowing like the older side of it, but I am excited to see where it goes because I think it will get to a point where whether it's because certain entities are focused on having their own, or maybe certain aspects of the existing system kind of branch out and grow more, like the cosplayers grow more, maybe the people who do props grow more. I mean, I saw that happen at a convention too. And just prop making or board game making or game making in general. I'm just interested to see where cons focus. And the more local they get and accessible they get, I'm excited to see the community that you guys were kind of bringing up before, and not like the meat market where you just get pushed. through a
Yeah.
convention, right? So I'm
I
excited
would
to
say
see.
every time I've been to MegaCon, it's been like that personally.
I'm really looking forward to it, and it really makes it more accept. You start to believe. It's really weird as someone who is breaking into it or becoming a writer in that industry. It really gives you the ability to believe that you can have a table somewhere. It's hard to believe that when
Right.
you go like to the Emerald City or maybe Rose City. It's just hard because you think, oh man, they've been doing that for years, or they're really, really good. How can I ever do that thing? But you can actually, if you can talk to people, if you can feel so connected to the community that there's that support saying, no, you can really do this. This is like
Right.
a very feasible thing for you to do. Here's how I did it, right? I don't know. I think you'll see the industry kind of even grow, like the industry pick up because all that talent suddenly believes that they can and aren't afraid to get out there and do the things. I'm excited to see where it goes. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say as like a bit of insight, like you said, you're just getting into it when not doing conventions. Me personally, I for the longest time am not very good at talking about myself, right? Um, the way I explain it to people, like at conventions, I would be like, please, sir, please buy my book, please, right? And then it kind of you kind of have to like develop your pitch. Listening to Roland at conventions, Jefe, man, that brother will pull people from across the room. Just the way he like engages with people, and I'm like going to conventions. I enjoy like watching him. If I sit next to him and whatnot, I enjoy just like watching him talk to people and whatnot. How he engages with them. But like I'm slowly starting to learn that. You know what I mean? But your pitch, practice your barking at smaller conventions. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I mean, I think we need to do a podcast where we're talking about like con essentials, not just packing gear, but like cabling stuff like that, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
I definitely feel that going to the smaller shows has helped me to hone my bark. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
For anybody that's younger than Tim, barking is a thing where like you get people to come to your stuff. You attract people to your stuff. It used to be done at like carnivals and stuff like that, right? You'd have someone with the stick. Oh, go on, look at the show, blah blah blah. But you have to bark for yourself. Like when you're an artist or a writer, especially a writer, because you may have books on the table, but you don't have any like art. You're not
Mhm.
the peacock, right? The artists are the peacock. They're the ones with the big feathers, right? But you still have to like bark in your own way to get people to your table. And I know several artists that like or create writers that are pretty good at it. You know what I mean? But they find their niche uh, um, speech. They find their, you know what I mean, the one thing that they like to say, the way they like to call out and stuff like that. So the little shows, they're really good for that. You know what I mean? They're really good for practicing and just like getting that down because who cares if you say something bad? I mean, if you say something wrong, then you're like, wait, no, I said that wrong. Give me a second, right?
Yeah.
And and getting to know the promoters was one thing that being with Silverline, like I said, Roland has been really good in showing me who the promoters are at the shows. Like, oh, this is the promoter for this show. Where you should go say hi. I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? You're right. I will go say hi. So, like, I mean, there's so much to learn at the smaller shows.
Hmm.
Kind of why I like them, right? The big shows are great. I tend to make a decent amount of money there, but like the smaller shows are the ones you really get to know people at. You know what I mean? And that's what I like. I like getting to know people and talking to people. I don't know. If I'm not passionate about the work that I do, they're not going to be passionate to buy it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's all I got to say.
Okay. Well, that is everything. This has been That's the One Show on Tuesday. We have been your hosts, and tonight has been our discussion on how the comic convention scene has changed. There will be no show next week because we will be taking time to be with our families and wrangle our 87 children for Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Um,
Thankfully, I won't have to wrangle them in. Disney will do that for me.
Yes, very good. The week after that, however, we will be then talking about what our favorite parts of the comic industry are. The week after will be what we're thinking for, what our favorite parts of comics and the comics industry are. So we'll be back then. Until then, make sure to head over to the Silverline Comics website, pick up your merch, buy some comics so you're caught up on all of our series.
Right. There'll be a quiz at the end.
Absolutely. Make sure to check out Wednesday Wham and Silver Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern on those respective days. And until next time, make mine
Silverline.
My name is Ross Ritchie from Boom Studios, and make mine Silverline.